Hello, folks. Welcome to Between Awesome and Disaster. This is your host, Will Carey. I appreciate you being here, and I hope you're doing as good as you can be, given the very sad state of the United States of America at the present moment. I am recording this 2 days after a group of domestic terrorists stormed the Capitol building, and I call it that because that's what it was. And to even try to attempt any sort of defense or argument to what happened on January 6, 2021, you're wrong. If you're calling it protest, you're wrong. If you're calling it justified, you're wrong. If you are making any sort of excuse for the actions that a mob of domestic terrorists took against the U.S. Capitol, you are wrong, and there's no other explanation for it. And I would seriously recommend you take a look at yourself and why you are feeling the way you do if you disagree with me. It's something that I have been anxiously watching the news the past several days, just hoping for any kind of update, because it's now less than 2 weeks from the inauguration, but something clearly has to be done. Otherwise, someone in the future is going to think that they can act in a similar way and not face any consequences. So I'm hoping for some action to be taken by the members of Congress, whether that's the 25th Amendment, impeachment, but something clearly has to be done. And those that participated in the act of domestic terrorism, which is again what it was, they need to be prosecuted as such. This news is this is the kind of, and I'm sure a few other people might feel this, this is the kind of event or news that you read about occurring in history books or occurring in other countries. You never think you would live through it yourself, but that's what it is. And to try to rationalize or justify or somehow downplay the truly horrible nature of what occurred on January 6th at the U.S. Capitol building is to not give the event itself the full gravity of what it is. So I really hope that something is done, because I'm sure I don't want this to happen again. I want everyone to know where I stand on this. If you condone what they did, you're wrong. And if you were participated in it, you're wrong. I know that this is typically not why people listen to my show, but this is something that has been festering on my mind. If we're leaning more towards the disaster side as far as world events concerned, it's important to acknowledge it. And I just kind of have to speak it. So that's where I stand on that. And I don't pontificate on the nuances. There are much smarter people that could analyze and detect why police reacted the way to this protest compared to other protests over the summer. There are a lot more smarter people to discuss that than me. But all I'll say is that the riotous, seditious mob that stormed the U.S. Capitol committed an act of domestic terrorism, and that needs to be described as such and needs to be litigated and prosecuted as such. So thank you for indulging me up top here. I don't often get this serious, but the nature of the events requires it. But I am very excited to share this episode with you today, guys, because my guest on the show is Seb Barlow. Seb Barlow is the bass player in the pop punk band Neck Deep. He's also he also mixed their most recent album, All Distortions Are Intentional, that came out last year, which is one of my favorite albums of 2020. And he's also the brother of the lead singer of the band, Ben. So he joined the band recently, but has worked with them for a while. And if anyone here is interested in songwriting, home recording, there's a lot of very interesting and useful information. We get into some of the recording techniques used on All Distortions. and there's a lot of very interesting information to mine from. I definitely feel like I learned a lot having this conversation. It was also because, again, it was recorded. I recorded this interview the day after the events at the Capitol building, so it was great to have like a break to be able to discuss an album. I'm very passionate about music. I'm very passionate about is often what I come back to in trying times. So I was very fortunate and happy to be able to get to chat with Seb. He's a great guy, and I look forward to meeting him in person in the future when Neck Deep play the U.S. So I appreciate you guys being here. I hope you're well, and fingers crossed for action to resolve a very serious problem, and then for hopefully better news on the horizon whenever that comes. So thank you for being here, and let's go to my chat with bassist for Neck Deep and audio engineer Seb Barlow. Yeah, so with this interview, I think I have now interviewed everybody that was associated with the creation of the Life in Slow Motion EP by Goalkeeper.
Awesome.
So this is a exciting, Seb. I wanted to say to you, like, I was researching some of the recording projects you've been on, and like really like I've been really getting into like the technical stuff of recording in the last year or so, and I thought the sounds you got. I'll talk specifically about Life in Slow Motion first, but like the mix is like great. Like the drum, especially like the drum sounds, I thought were incredible on that EP.
Thank you, man. Drums is definitely something that I spend the most time doing. That's probably where I focus most of my efforts when it comes to mixing. But I've got it pretty dialed now. But yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm stoked on how that came out. I mixed that whole thing on just a laptop and headphones.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I can't remember when I started mixing that, but it was around the time that like lockdown was starting to come in, and I hadn't moved all my like setup from the studio to home like I have now. So I only had my laptop and my headphones. So I just made do with that.
I thought it came out really well. If you don't mind me asking, what headphones did you use? Because I've always heard like traditional wisdom is you don't want to mix on headphones if you can. So I was curious what were you using, like monitors?
I use Sennheiser HD 600s. They're open back headphones, which people say are supposed to be more representative of speakers, I suppose. But I love them. It's these things right here.
Oh, those look cool.
Yeah, they're really cool. The only thing with them though is like, because they're open back, there's no like noise cancellation whatsoever. So you can't mix in public or do any of that kind of thing. You still need a really quiet room. But I think the thing about like not mixing on headphones is not true at all anymore. Like with headphone, like maybe 10 years ago or something, but with where headphones are at now, like it's totally possible to do it. I know Zach Savini, who mixed like the latest Bring Me the Horizon and Machine Gun Kelly and Youngblood and stuff. He's been mixing on HD 600s for the whole of lockdown.
Oh, wow.
And also mixing a little bit on just Apple AirPods.
That's great. That's crazy. Because those records, I loved the new Machine Gun Kelly. I thought it was a fantastic record. Not only are the songs really good, but the sound is incredible. And the Bring Me Horizon, like bringing in all those like Japanese influence, like and metalcore influences, I thought was like really brilliant. So to think that you can make like such a quality sounding record on headphones now is insane. Yeah. I just now, like, I didn't realize this is how far out of the like recording game I was. I didn't know at the beginning of lockdown that you could emulate a guitar amp with software now. I had no idea. And then I just got over the holiday, I got and I know you are familiar with this product, like the STL Tone Hub plugin. I got like the John Feldman pack, and I was just playing around with that because I've been trying to sound like early 2000s pop punk, like high gain and then like really mid-rangey bass for as long as I've been playing music, and now it's like right all in the laptop.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. I have like no equipment here whatsoever. I have an iMac, I have my interface, and I have my speakers. Everything I do is completely in the computer. There's I have a Kemper, which is like a guitar amp modeler like thing, like a piece of hardware, but
Hmm.
it's been in my studio the whole year. I've not used it once because I've just been using ToneHub.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's crazy.
yeah,
Um,
it's insane.
yeah,
I wanted to ask you specifically with the because you also mixed All Distortions Are Intentional,
yeah.
the newest Neck Deep, which was one of my favorite albums last year. It was incredible. I wanted to ask you specifically when you approached mixing that album, because I feel like there's like layers of acoustic guitar under several of the songs. I was wondering how you approached getting that to cut through the mix and be there without getting like drowned out by like all of the distortion and loud drums.
Firstly, thank you, appreciate it. I'm glad you like the album.
Absolutely, it's
I'm
wonderful.
I'm also kind of happy that you brought up the acoustic guitars because they're on every single song, and they were just like a tick list thing to do, and I do on all my mixes now. And even if I get sent stuff to mix,
Hmm.
I'll record acoustic guitars myself over the choruses or ask a friend to do it for me. But the cool thing with that we did with All Distortions or Intentional guitars was we did it with a producer called Matt Squire, who's awesome, and he showed
Hmm.
us this thing called the Nashville Trick, and it's basically we recorded standard six string, whatever tuning the songs were in, um, recorded the whole record with every acoustic, but then right at the end of the record, the Nashville technique was basically we took the top, like the highest six strings of a 12 string acoustic,
Hmm.
put them on the sixth string, and then played the exact same thing over it. So it's like an octave higher, I think what it was. So you've
Hmm.
got like the normal, like standard sound and acoustic, but then you've got the six strings from the 12 string acoustic, which is like super bright in there too. So it's kind of like a 12 string acoustic guitar. Another cool thing about the acoustic guitars on that record, which was a tip Matt kind of got us to do, which was really cool, which he learned from Nickelback somehow. I don't know how he found it out, but basically just play the acoustic guitar as hard as physically possible, like feel
Hmm.
like you're gonna like break the strings with how hard you're like playing it. So that was definitely part of the sound. But in terms of like mixing, the way I see acoustics, like especially when they're layers like that, is they're kind of just percussion. They're not really there to make a tone, really. You're not really like supposed to hear the notes. So for
Hmm.
me, it was like getting rid of a lot of like low end and even like mid range, like the notes, I suppose, getting rid of that and basically just making it a percussion instrument. So then it was getting rid of all that low end, but then it was compressing it super hard and then putting a limiter at the end of it too. So you're
Uh-huh.
basically just like pinning them into place and making them stay there. But I always kind of just try and view them as a percussion element rather than a melodic element.
Yeah, that makes total sense, because when when you're strumming like super hard and like you're hitting like certain accents on certain chords, especially like with the acoustic songs that Neck Deep does. Or another song I always point to is like the acoustic version of Everlong by the Foo Fighters. Like I don't think
Okay,
there are
yeah,
any drums on that version of that song, but you don't miss them because like the guitar is becomes like the tempo, like the way the person is playing.
for
That's
sure. And the transients like punch you rather than like the kick and snare. You're kind of getting that impact or whatever from playing it so hard, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. That was when I first started getting into playing guitar. That was really forceful, like powerfully like strummed acoustic and like open tunings. I was really into also like early Dashboard Confessional stuff or the Goo Goo Dolls. Like they had those songs that, or I don't know, I guess it's open D flat, but you could just like hit that like all the strings open. And it
Mm-hmm.
just sound you just feel like $1,000,000, like you can feel like the energy of the universe coursing
It feels
through
like
you.
cheating.
What's that?
It feels like cheating. Like because it sounds like because you don't even have to like put your fingers on the frets and it sounds awesome already.
Yeah, exactly. I started like a little bit of. I kicked up some shit on Facebook for saying that Johnny Resnick doesn't get enough credit for popularizing open tunings as he should. And then a bunch of people were like, popular music on the radio. I must respond. But that's a fascinating trick, like with the acoustic guitars. Like it comes through completely. I also thought, and and correct me if I'm wrong, when it comes to the electric guitar distortion, I on that it's not the standard kind of like pop punk sound. To me, the distortion tones kind of reminded me of like early '90s, like Britpop, or like definitely maybe by Oasis, like the way that distortion sounds compared to like screaming big dick USA rock and roll.
For sure, it was definitely intentional. Excuse the pun, but all distortions are intentional, and we kind of made that joke a bunch throughout the record. But yeah, it was definitely intentional, and I think it's something all musicians or artists or bands should kind of try and have this like as much of a like defined vision as possible before you go into the studio, and we had that, and obviously with me, we were able to like pre-pro and demo a bunch of stuff before we went in, but we were for sure going for that sound. And guitars on All Distortions Are Intentional were, God, there's so many guitars, like just so many layers of guitars on that record. We used, what did we use? We used a Marshall JCM 800 or 900, I think. I can't remember what cab we used. I'm not 100%. But then, so we had the Marshall, and then we also layered that with a Kemper with like different amp profiles. I think it was like a Bogner. And then on some songs we also had I think it was maybe Tonality, STL Tones Tonality, Howard Benson, I think that was it. So like for the main rhythms, most of the time it was like real amp with two mics, a Kemper, and plugin software. And then what else did we use? We used an AC30, a Vox AC30. That was a really cool one for like, those things sound like we could have just used that for the whole thing. They sound great from like cleans to crunch to heavy. But I think, I don't want to say a mistake that young producers or mixers or whatever make is even in like maybe not metal, but punk and this kind of genre, like you don't need crazy distortion. Like you can roll it back a little bit, and you need less gain than you think you need. That's kind of what I've learned over the last couple of years. Is it sounds clearer and just as distorted, even with the gain dialed back a little bit. There was a bunch of pedals all on the guitars too. There was never like a set and forget, this is what we're using, let's just keep this for everything. Every song we did, it was always, let's try a different pedal, let's tweak the pedal or whatever. The only thing that really stayed the same was the mic positions.
Yeah,
and that was cool. That was cool too. We did this. It's called a pink noise trick, and it's like you basically run pink noise through the amplifier and through the cabinet. And this only works when you need two microphones on a cab, but run pink noise through it, put a microphone on it in the place that you think you need it, and then for the second microphone, you basically move it around until the pink noise phases itself out and cancels it, and it sounds like one microphone. And then right, that's in the perfect position now, and you flip the phase on the other one, and that's how we guaranteed that we would get a good two microphone position each time. So that was fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's super, super cool. It come like, just again, like you're totally right. Like as far as like layering and you get a lot more note clarity when you are not just huge wall of distortion. I wonder about that sometimes in the band I'm in now, because my guitarist I call him like a vest metal dude. Do you know what I mean? Like that kind of like stoner.
Crabcore?
Not crabcore, more like I guess stoner rock, because he has the big muff, which I love that kind of like old school rock and roll kind of like hardcore punk fuzz. But I also have all these ideas that involve like open chords, and fuzz is hard to do open chords with. I've found
totally.
Totally. But I thought it was just I thought Distortions was just an incredible sounding record. I also I have one more question, and then I want to kind of get and then I want to get into some other stuff. On Pushing Daisies, at the very beginning of the song, there's that kind of like that melody in the back, that da 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 da. What instrument is that?
it's a guitar, but it's with, I forget the name of the fucking. Oh no, I know exactly what it is. Sorry, it's called an ebow, and rather than use a pick,
Mm-hmm.
we used an electronic ebow. So it like
Oh, the thing you kind of hold up to the strings and it makes the string vibrate, kind of makes it sound like a violin.
that's it. That's what we used. So we used that all over the record too. So you obviously put your left hand, or well, for Sam, he's left-handed, so his right hand on the frets and like move it around that way. But you don't use a pick or like strum anything. You just like put this ebow on it, and that's what that sound is, and that's all over the record.
Oh, okay. Because
Yeah.
I was trying to figure it out. I thought it was like maybe like some kind of like old like organ that was like being like reverse phased or like played backwards or something.
No, just that ebow. I can't remember the exact model of it. It was like a little white thing, but it's electric. I'm not super versed in like lots of guitar accessories, but I think that one was specifically like an electric one. It was battery powered, and you had to turn it on and stuff. But it took
Mm-hmm.
some getting used to. It wasn't just as simple as putting it on and it sounding good. It definitely had to learn a technique to get it to sound that way.
Yeah, you kind of have to use it. I think on the when Newfound Glory covered "Kiss Me," they did the second movie covers EP. The melody on "Kiss Me" was that as well. So I've always
Hmm.
thought that was a fun little trick.
It's the
I'm
end of Torn too, like our cover of Torn, and the original of the Torn, Natalie and Imbruglia or whatever. Like the very end of that song where it's like wow,
uh huh.
wow. That's an Evo too.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love like playing around with sounds. Like I like the electro harmonics pedals. I have them all on my pedal board back here, like the Key 9 and the and like the Mel 9, like that replicates like the Mellotron. It's like just
Hmm.
so fun to futz around with. I'm trying to convince my band that because I have a synth pedal also, that we need to do more 80s covers so I can get some more synth in the sound. Um,
Yeah.
I'm curious. I've been trying to trace this over some of the interviews I've done recently because a few years ago I was in Liverpool and I went to this museum of British music, and it seems like there's been a long history of like a cultural exchange of different musical ideas between America and the UK. And I'm curious for you, what was your introduction to like what we would call pop punk nowadays?
So I think the bottom line that kind of like really got me into it was Blink.
Uh huh.
Before that, I have an older, so Ben in Neck Deep is my younger brother, but we have an older brother, and he got us into Punkorama. If you remember
Yes,
those
on Epitaph.
compilations.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was his favorite band ever is Bad Religion.
Mm-hmm.
So that was our like early way into it was Punkorama tapes, like the compilation tapes. So it was No Effects and Pennywise and Millencolin and all that kind of stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
then Tony Hawk was a huge one.
Oh,
Of
to
course,
Pro Skater.
it's a
Yeah.
it's a cliche, I know, but Tony Hawk was definitely a big one, I think, for us as young kids. But the biggest one for me and my brother was Blink for sure. But Newfound Glory, they hold a special place in my heart. They're definitely a number two or a three of all time.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was just Blink. I know that's such a boring answer, and it's always like, who's your favorite band or who started it all, and it's just always Blink.
It is that it's the same. It's the same for me. I remember. I remember being I guess I must have been like 12. I think I was 12 at the time, and I had a compilation called "Now That's What I Call Music." Do you know those?
Yep, for
So
sure.
so I had number 3. I think it's on like 40 or 50 now, and I had it because I wanted to listen to All Star by Smash Mouth, and I was like would just play that over and over again. And I was like, oh, I wonder what else is on this. And then I heard What's My Age Again, and I never heard like arpeggios before. I was like, oh, that sounds great. And then I want more of that. And then it took some convincing to get my mom to buy Enema of the State because of the cover. But I heard Dumpweed, and I just heard that big open E chord, and I was like, oh, okay, I need to know. I want to. I love this sound. I must learn to make more of these sounds. Blink, I feel like they were like the band of that like late '90s, early 2000s burst of pop punk. I feel like they were the band more than anyone else that inspired people to like want to play,
For sure.
to like want to pick
Yeah.
up. Because yeah, I totally relate to that. Blink are my one of my favorite band are my favorite band of all time. And Newfound Glory, I think that was the first time I ever heard. I didn't know it was called a breakdown at the time, or easycore, because I know there's lots of bands that have pop bands that have breakdowns now, but I had never heard a breakdown before, or was going to have any exposure to hardcore culture.
Totally. It was the same for me. I never, and I don't even think I clicked at the time exactly what it was, because I was into that before I was into metal or anything, even though I was probably a similar time I was listening to Slipknot. They're another like favorite band of mine, but
Mm-hmm.
I was too young to really understand music and didn't really understand what they're doing. But as I got older, it's like, oh, they were doing they are the easycore band, you know, they were doing it before anyone else, and they did it really tastefully. Like, I'm not the hugest fan of easycore. I definitely don't dislike it, but I guess it's in moderation. But you're right, it was Newfound definitely did something different, and I think that was because of Chad. Like, Chad's in Shy Halud, I think it is, if that's how you say it.
Yeah, that was his. Yeah, that was his band before, where I think he was the front man doing all the like rah rah scream
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
So you can definitely hear it. I don't know I'm trying to think of like why it was Newfound and Blink. I know for Blink it was always just because it was more than the music for me. Of course, I love the music, like you say, Dumpweed, and hearing that on the Mark, Tom, and Travis show, and like the opening with Dumpweed, like one of the best openers. And I mean, Take Off had a great opener too.
Mm-hmm.
They all have great, but I think with Blink it was because of they felt like your friends. You kind of got to know them through their videos and through the DVDs and things like that, and it was that little extra personality that kind of made me really attached to them, and definitely have taken some of that ethos through to Neck Deep now. Like, I think the biggest thing for me with Neck Deep, or the thing I always try and keep me grounded with, or try and keep everyone grounded with, is we're losers, or we're idiots. We're no better than anyone else. We're stupid. Like, and I think that kind of comes from Blink, of like the What's My Age Again video, running around naked or telling stupid dick jokes on stage. And it's just that thing of like, don't take yourself too seriously. You're not better than anyone. Everyone's the same. Like, it can kind of happen to anyone. Like, they were dumb, stupid kids from Southern California. We're dumb, stupid kids from North Wales.
No, yeah, that's exactly. I felt the same way. I watched like the Urethra Chronicles, and like they had like my sense of humor at the time when I was really getting into them, and then they sort of felt like the cool older brother that I personally didn't have. But that so and exactly like I felt like, oh, I'm from the suburbs. I want to do that. They're doing that. Like, they become like the path in the grass to like to following your dreams, or following or even for me it was like getting dreams. Like, my greatest ambition at that time was to like play video games and work at a record store. And then I was like, oh, I'm gonna learn to play guitar, and I'm gonna see the world.
Totally. That's a good point too, about like the guitar. They got me into, I played guitar, and the thing I loved about it was, one, that it was super easy, and two, that you don't need to know music theory and all this crazy stuff. You can just pick up a guitar and hit it and fuck around and figure it out by yourself. You don't need all this background, all this training, or anything like that. You can just pick up an instrument and go. And Tom has always described their stuff as nursery rhymes. And since I heard him say that, it's like, yeah, it definitely is just like punk nursery rhymes. I kind of hear that all the time now.
Oh yeah, totally. It's that, and another thing that makes me think about that is Jim Brewer, the comedian. He's known for being like really into metal, and he talks about how Iron Maiden is like the Wiggles for old people.
Okay. Yeah.
And like Eddie is like the big mascot, like everyone wants to. Yeah, that's my other favorite. My other thing I think about when it comes to like, especially when it comes to like writing lyrics, is I saw a video of Dave Grohl and Kyle Gass at backstage at some festival, and Dave Grohl says like, approach it like a bumper sticker, and he's like, like life's a bitch, and he just starts playing like D C G, singing life's a bitch, and it's like the catchiest sounding thing.
That's cool. Yeah. That's a good one too.
Absolutely. So coming from North Wales, I don't know much about. I was Googling your hometown a little bit. I know you have the oldest football ground in the UK. But what's the vibe in Wrexham? I've only spent a little bit of time in Wales.
So we're about 45 minutes away from Liverpool. So you were pretty close to us, half an hour, 45 minutes away.
Hmm.
Um, we are a working class town. It's I'm trying to think of how I'd like it's a neck deep song, but in Can't Kick Up the Roots, it's this place is such a shipwreck, but this shipwreck's mine. And
Hmm.
I don't want to definitely say this, but I'm sure the original lyrics, this place is such a shithole, but this shithole it is mine. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what it is it's it is in between. It's not super poor, but it's definitely not rich. And I don't know. There's so much charm about the place, and the thing I love most about it is because we are a working class town. There's no egos, and there's no bullshit. Like what you see is what you get. The community is really good. If in all the villages surrounding, everyone knows everyone, and everyone looks
Hmm.
out for each other. Like I say, half an hour one way is Liverpool, but then half an hour the other way is Snowdonia, which is like a national park. Or
Uh-huh.
that's what I love about it too, is you can drive 20 minutes one way and be in a city, or you can drive 20 minutes the other way and be in the middle of nowhere.
Hmm.
But in terms of things to do,
Was there
not
like,
much, not
yeah.
much. Apart from being Wales being a beautiful country and being able to go in pretty much any direction and find something beautiful. Or there's places on my doorstep that I can walk to. Like we're surrounded by natural beauty. But speaking of the world's oldest football club, or second oldest, or whatever, is we just got bought out by Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney from Always Sunny. They just bought our football club, which is pretty cool and exciting news for the town, and everyone's stoked on that.
Uh-huh.
So that was a nice little bit of news.
Oh, that's very cool. Wrexham
Mm.
AFC. Got
That's it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that'll be? Because do you think that'll do you see you guys going up to like League One, League Two, and League One in the next couple of years?
I mean, I hope so. People think that because it's got their kind of business brain behind it and money putting into it. But the thing I liked about it most was, so when I heard that they were doing it, and I knew they were going to be doing a documentary about it, and they said they're doing a documentary about it. That's cool. I had this thing in the back of my mind, like, oh, I hope we're not the butt of a joke. I hope we're
Uh-huh.
not like this whatever. But they've been so supportive on Twitter and stuff, and they've both said we want to help the community as well. In turn, as helping to grow the football club, the community will benefit too, and the town will benefit. So that's kind of my focus. I don't really care about football. I'll watch
Hmm.
it if it's on with my friends. But
Sure.
so if we go up, great. But for me, I'd love it to help the town out and the community
Hmm.
around us.
Yeah, absolutely. Given my knowledge of European soccer, football culture, and knowing how central the teams are to the towns in England,
Hmm.
in the UK, I would only want that for you guys. So I fingers crossed. I'll order a jersey and a scarf and
Oh, do it, man.
support the cause.
You got it.
Yeah. And was there like any kind of like local music scene like for you and brother? So you and your brother are like really into Blink and New Found Glory. Was there any kind of like kids forming garage bands and like putting on shows at like the local like I don't know if there's like an equivalent of like a VFW hall or community rec center or something like that.
Yeah, for sure, and it's still good. And Wrexham is a diamond in the rough. Like there is a lot going on here, and like I say, there's the community is great, and everyone looks out for each other. And so when we were growing up, there was a venue called Central Station,
Mm-hmm.
and that was kind of the main hub that bands always came through. I would say that the general music vibe around here wasn't so much on punk. It was probably more so in my time, and what we were kind of into was metal and hardcore and things like that. So
Uh-huh.
we always had like Suicide Silence or Bring Me the Horizon, or we had those kind of
Yeah.
and Shikari, that kind of thing. We always had those coming through. So we were lucky to have that venue that did it, and it's no longer there, and we don't really get any of that stuff through anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But the music scene in Wrexham now is still really strong and still really great, and a lot of indie rock. That seems to be the kind of main vibe.
Mm-hmm.
But not so much in our world anymore. But I could just be an old man out of touch, you know. I could just be like
Sure.
disconnected from it. But I don't think there is, and I think a lot of it was to do with that venue shutting down and not being, you know, having nowhere to put these bands on. It was a so there was a couple rooms there. The main room is like 600 cap, and then the other room is like 200-300 cap. So it was like
Uh-huh.
a nice size. Whereas the next jump up from that is like 1500, which is at like the university. So
Right.
it's quite a big difference to be able to do that. And then everything else around that is just really small 50 to 100 cap venues, just kind
Sure.
of dotted around the place. But the scene was great, and well, yeah, we were lucky to have that and have friends that cared about music and venues that would let our friends put it on. And we made great friends through it. Like West in the band, who plays
Mm-hmm.
guitar in Neck Deep. I met him through going to shows. I found it on my Facebook memories. I'd taken a screenshot from years ago of a
Uh-huh.
MySpace comment that he left me in like 2007 or something, and was
Yeah.
like, he was like, "Oh, I think I was stood behind you in the line at Ent Shikari last night," and like all these like scene emoji, like whatever, just weird exos and things. I
Uh-huh.
sent it to him, and he was really embarrassed. But
Oh,
that's it. Met a ton of friends there, and still know all those people.
that's awesome. Like music friends are like lifelong friends. Like the like people you encounter at like that specific like snapshot of your life when you're like first like finding yourself and like your own independence and your own stuff that you're into is just such a spectacular time. It's like so exciting. Um,
Totally. They were the like in high school. I hung around with what you would call the jocks, like they're chavs over here, but like I hung around with the jocks. But I was always the emo kid. Even I stuck out like a sore thumb with them because I was just dressed head to toe black, had a big black
uh-huh.
fringe, all that stuff. But they were to be able to go to shows on the weekends or whatever and go and be with like my people or whatever, like you say. I think that bond of having that kind of sanctuary together to kind of get away from high school and be with people who like the same music you like and wear the same clothes that you do. And yeah, and even though I don't see them all the time and I don't hang out with them anymore, whenever I do see them, or you know, we kind of interact with each other online, it's
Mm-hmm.
nothing but fond memories. And it was like nothing's ever changed.
Mm-hmm. I will still on occasion get a friend from high school because I was a theater kid, and then I was my best friend and I had a band also, and I will still on occasion find friends who kept our demo from like 20 years ago, that still have it, and it's just like wow, it's just it's awesome. I totally feel you there. So did you play what band did you play in bands as well? So your brother Neck Deep starts, and then were you in bands as well at this time?
No, I hadn't been in bands for a long time. So I joined my first band. If you go back before that, I did when I was probably 13. I wrote an acoustic EP.
Uh huh.
And a friend of mine again, who I met through the music scene. I still see him now. I'm good friends with him, Phil, King Street Coffee, and Andy, Bank Street Coffee. They were in bands, and Phil, he knew someone that owned a home studio like this. But back then, owning a home studio was just wild. It was probably like a 20 grand setup or something.
Yeah.
So I recorded an acoustic EP by myself when I was like 13 or something. So that was kind of my first taste of writing and recording music. And then I joined a kind of MySpace scene core metal band when I was 14.
Uh huh.
And I played the microKORG, obviously, got to have the microKORG synth.
Oh, of course.
And I was the clean vocalist as well. So I was in that band for like a year, 14 to 15. And then had a bit of time off. Then when I got to college, I met Sammy from the band Waster, and me and him had like an electronic pop, super cheesy, like Owl City Metro Station, that kind of vibe.
Uh
So we
huh.
did that for a year or two maybe. But so that probably gets me to about 17, and then from 17 onwards, I wasn't in any bands and have never been in bands. I didn't like the I don't know, the kind of, it's like that thing of like mixing friends and business to a degree. Like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like arguing with my friends or kind of like pushing and pulling with my friends too much, and I just thought it was too much of a headache for me. And that's why I kind of got into production, was because I love writing music, I love recording music, I
Uh-huh.
love doing all that kind of stuff, but I didn't really like the everything else that came with it. You know, it is like having five other girlfriends or boyfriends. Like it's so it was just emotionally draining to have to do that when it was really all I cared about was just writing and releasing music.
Yeah, I know when you get into the kind of interpersonal dynamics, the same way, like that's why my wife and I don't do a ton of stuff together, because I have my own way of doing things and she has her own thoughts. She'll ask me like my thought. I'll ask her like, "What do you think of this?" And she'll ask, "What do you think of that?" And then I'll go, "Oh, I think this." But as far as like a lot of active collaboration, I relate because it can, because then you end up like you can possibly lose friendships, and that's always a total bummer as well. So I relate.
Totally.
I had one quick question, because you were talking about like recording an acoustic EP, just an end like and like a producer question. I have a really hard time playing acoustic guitar and to a metronome. I can play electric guitar to a metronome and to drums very easily, but I always find myself getting off beat with when I try to set a BPM playing acoustic. Do you have any advice for how to like work around or practice, other than just like to continue to practice it?
I mean, it's yeah. What I would try and say probably is simplify it, like dumb it down a little bit. Don't try and do the exact strumming pattern that you want to do. So if you're playing like dung ga dung ga dung ga dung, try do it just dung 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 and just go on the beat like that. So
Okay.
I think my advice would be to just, if you're struggling with keeping it in time, I would say just dumb it down, dumb the strumming pattern down a little bit until you can. So rather than doing 16th notes or whatever, just do quarter notes and oversimplify it until you're hitting on that beat every time. And then when you feel comfortable and you're like, oh, cool, I'm getting it now, then start to add in the additional strums, I suppose. I think that would be, yeah. Other than just keep practicing, I think
Okay.
that would probably be my best advice, is just simplify it.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because I'm working on my acoustic EP during the lockdown. You know, ar-
Awesome.
around the time I was last year, I was like, well, Tune Track started popping up in like my feeds, and I was like, oh, they're having a sale. Well, better no better time to try to learn this than now, because I can't do stand up indoors, and you know, it's too cold now for. There's a diner by my apartment that does shows in the parking lot. It's a little that like
Okay.
drive-in show, so I'll go back to this. So you're mostly so you're like focused on like you're being like a behind the scenes guy, like being like in the studio.
For sure. And I'm quite an introverted person generally. Like I don't take compliments particularly well. I'm trying to work on that and have been working on that for a while. But I don't really like attention. Like this whole lockdown for me has been, without sounding privileged or anything like that, but it's been a breeze for me because I've kind of
Mm-hmm.
been preparing my whole life and like always been a hermit, you know, and that's been my career anyway. Like, okay, I'll record bands for a week, two, three, four, whatever we're, you know, while we're doing it. But then when they're gone, I'm on my own anyway. Sorry, excuse that text. Let me just stick my
Oh, no worries.
apologies. Just stick a does not disturb on. Yeah. So I'm always on my own, and sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Oh no,
It
so
was behind the scenes. Yeah, it was. So it was partly in turn that I didn't want the relationships affected or the kind of money and drama and all this kind of, I don't know, just the emotional ties that go beyond music. But yeah, I'm a introverted person. I'm quite happy just focusing on work and
mm-hmm.
sticking my head down and carrying on with it. And that's not like I say this has been a breeze for me. It's not like that's a broad statement. It has been difficult at times, and it's been difficult for my girlfriend. So in turn has been difficult for me, and I miss my friends. But
Mm-hmm.
I like being a hermit. I like doing my own thing on my own time whenever I want to do it without having to, I don't know, rely on anyone else or answer to anyone else about what I'm doing. I kind of just want to do it when I want to do it. But
Mm-hmm.
at the end, this time last year, before a little bit, when when it kind of came around to join Neck Deep and they'd approached me about it, or had kind of they'd asked me to do it like a bunch of times before, or had kind of like gauged my interest, and they always say it like jokingly, and it's always just like, nah, I'm good. But this time when they asked me, I don't know why I felt differently, but it was just like, yeah, I want to challenge myself now. I want to get out my comfort zone a little bit. And of course, there's definitely strengths and positives in knowing who you are and living by that. But also, I don't want to put myself in this box and tell myself I'm this person and I don't do this. You know what I mean? I like this and I don't like this. So for me, it was, as well as, of course, the band is my baby and I love it. And a big one for me when the opportunity came was like, I felt so strongly about the record and felt personally attached to it. I was like, I have to play these songs live. I really want to play these songs live. But it was also a personal thing of just getting myself out of my comfort zone and proving myself wrong almost. And just working on it that way. So I don't ever want to be stuck or define myself as this or this or the other. And it's that thing of not pretending to know it all the time. It's the same with like production. I'd be considered a professional. I've been doing this for 10 years now, but I still feel like I've only been doing it for a year. I still question myself all the time, and I still like learning, and I go out of my way to try and learn new things. So I don't know. I'm trying to grow as a person always.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I think is commendable, because I feel like I know lots of people are very resistant to change, or I definitely think if I had not been open to new ideas or new experiences, I don't think I definitely would not be married to the woman I am right now. I would not have the life I do right now, because I was in this mode of like, I was fine. I was looking for happiness in the laughs of approval from people in dark basements and drink and getting sloshed every night. So,
oh man, stand-up comedy absolutely scares the shit out of me. Like I don't know how anyone can like get up there and tell jokes and do that in front of people. So to me, that's super commendable. I like a lot of comedians. I follow a few and listen to some podcasts and stuff, but man, that is some next level fucking anxiety shit for me.
Yeah.
Like at least in a band you get up there and you've got like really loud instruments behind you and it's like cool, it's all kind of just a noise, whereas it's just you and a microphone in front of a ton of people.
Exactly. And then especially now, because sometimes you're performing in front of people that are still in their cars. Or in like rooftops and like all this stuff. I mean, for me, it's like it's a compulsion. Like I need to do it. Like I kind of get the same rush that I get from being on stage. And I've failed, but when I failed, and then I lived to see the end of the set, and like I woke up the next day. That's when I felt like empowered. Like not like I was like, I'm going to work hard to not repeat this experience every time. But sometimes, and I don't know if it's the same way with music, but you can be very funny. Like you can like have a command of the craft, and you can just get put in front of people that are just of a very particular group mindset. So so you can only have a certain cap for how well you're going to succeed. I don't know if it's the same for I don't know if I've had the same experience when I've done gigs, but I know what you mean. Like you can just start the next song if someone says you suck. You can just get into
well, I think the differences as well is with music, of course, when you're starting out, if you're doing support slots or trying to do this thing, then you're trying to win people over. But when you're a bit more established and you're selling your own tickets, then you probably don't have to worry about that too much. But the difference with comedians, and obviously I'm not a comedian, but from what I get, listen to other comedians' podcasts and things like that, is like even the biggest comedians still go to these tiny clubs to practice their routines, and they'll do it in front of no one, and that's quite different from music.
Yeah, in New York, I see people that have been on like on TV, like the Tonight Show, and have Comedy Central specials or write for TV. I see all the time. But but I guess Neck Deep doesn't have to go to like a local pub on a Thursday night to see how She's
Well,
a
I
God
guess
is going to play.
yeah, yeah. Well, I guess like the thing you're selling is jokes and laughter, whereas like our joke or like our equivalent of that joke and laughter is a song that people have already consumed a million times and they know exactly what they're getting. Whereas it's you've got to try and win people over every time. You've got to work the crowd and you've got to
Every single time.
do it. Yeah, you've got to do it that way. So I understand that. I do get the mentality behind even some of these huge guys that will go out to these tiny clubs and do it, and it is just because it's a back and forth, I guess, and you do need to test the waters and figure out what works and what doesn't. And I hear a lot of comedians record themselves. They'll record their own sets and then go back and listen and edit it and all that kind of stuff. So comedy and what you do is just as much of a creative art as it is writing a record.
Well, thank you, man. I feel seen when to hear you say that. So thanks. And likewise, I feel like the struggle for especially bands that are like want to like tour and like write their own songs, because there's always going to be a market for like someone to do like cover sets, but then to like have people come out to hear songs that you wrote and you worked on, I feel is as much of a struggle as being me trying to get known for these are the jokes I write, and I'm this funny, and you're gonna come to see me. So I feel like there's a few similarities as well, but I appreciate
it's scary. Like the similarity of always anytime you kind of put yourself out there to be judged is a little bit scary. But I wish that there was some kind, like I would love to know the music equivalent of what comedians do, where they go to like these tiny clubs and kind of gauge feedback and go back and forth that way, because that could be useful. But it's the fine line, because you don't if a musician writes a record for someone other than themselves, if they do it just to please their fan base, then it will come across as insincere. And even if the artist thought that they were writing the best record and our fans are going to love this, but if you don't love it, then fans aren't going to love it, because they'll know and it'll come across as insincere.
right.
I don't know the point I'm trying to get across. I like that thing in stand-up comedy of practice and being able to refine your craft through public feedback, I suppose.
Totally, because you I guess you get, when you're writing a record, you get public feedback from the tour after the record comes out.
Exactly.
Has Neck Deep gotten, you probably didn't get to do the All Distortions Are Intentional tour yet?
No, man. We didn't play a single show last year. It was so crazy. Said I've joined the band in December, like cool. January we did some like promo stuff, like just with us, and we shot videos, and that was cool. And then we did a pop-up, like a 2-day pop-up event in London, where we kind of launched the first single and all the artwork, and had fans come down and met a load of people and all this kind of stuff, and that was amazing. And then the world shut down, and it was so disheartening. And that's what I think has been a bummer for the band in ways, like, because we absolutely love the record, and we know that our fans love the record, and we see it through like tweets or messages, or and even like numbers and things like that. Like it's really good, and the positive reaction we've received online is great. But for the other guys, I mean, for me, because I've not played a show, it's not quite the same. But for the other guys, they're so used to going out and touring a record and seeing that feedback, and then that live reaction is confirmation for them. Like, cool, like it the energy and the ebb and flow throughout the set, like it works, and we can see people reacting to this. And even just like face to face, like meeting people and them coming up to you and telling you is different than a tweet. And it's always that thing of on Twitter or whatever, is you always pay attention to that one shitty comment, and you like focus your attention on that, when there's hundreds of nice comments, but you're kind of just like, oh, whatever, we get loads of those. Why does this guy not like it? And so that's driven some of us mad, and it didn't put a downer on the campaign. It's because the whole world's going through the same thing right now, and that's what we have to kind of remind ourselves, is like everyone is in this position right now. There's no point in us getting sad and feeling sorry for ourselves. Like the whole world is in this position, and we get to play music for a living. We're so privileged to be able to do that. Like,
Yeah,
we're not gonna fucking kick up a stink.
totally. Yeah, it's a pretty yeah, it's kind of a really it's a surreal experience. Like I never like I my wife and I talk about this all the time. Like this is the stuff like you read about in history books. Like and now I feel like I'm living like my 10th grade my 10th grade like history class. Um it's truly bizarre. When shows come back, I will be at the New York show. Um
Awesome.
so
You have to.
I
You know, we'll have to go get a drink or some food or something.
that would be great. I would love to do that. I'll hold you to that, Seb. So that's I will look forward to that in the after times. I think according to some app, I'm like me and my wife are like in New York like 1,700,000th in line for the vaccine. So eventually, eventually we'll be it'll happen. I also wanted to say I thought it was I was truly blown away because I thought "She's a God" was such a great song, and that I was surprised it was not on the album.
Yeah, it was. It was. We made that decision because it didn't fit into the narrative. That was all it really was. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we didn't go into this record trying to write a concept record or a story or anything else, but it was there was a little bit of a light bulb moment for Ben in the studio where he realized that he could tell a story through characters and
Uh
kind
huh.
of that made him feel a little bit more comfortable revealing sides of his personality that he didn't necessarily want to say, this is about me. He could kind of hide behind the mask of a character a little bit. So
Mm-hmm.
that kind of opened up the thing of, oh cool, I get to tell a story, and it's a love story of feeling down and I meet a girl and then this, that, and you know what I mean? That we told this story, and by the time we kind of figured that out and realized where it was going and what the record was about, it was we couldn't find the right place to have She's a God. Like we couldn't figure out where it would fit or what point it would serve, I guess, just to kind of have a love song on the record.
Mm-hmm.
um so that's all it was, really. That was
Yeah.
a weird one too. Like, some people absolutely loved that song and some people absolutely fucking hated it, but I love it.
I thought it was I thought it was a great song. To me, it seemed like because I always read about like and I'm not making a direct comparison, but I remember like back in the '60s, like the Beatles would just like write a classic song, and then it would just be like exist as a single. But it totally makes sense for the story that the album kind of tells, which I thought was very clever. Like I always love these tales of these kind of like two people that are surrounded by chaos, but they have each other. Like I always kind of relate to that sort of us against the world sort of vibe. And I guess maybe I'd have to ask your brother this to get the specifics, but what does the concept of Saunderland what is that idea to you? Because to me, listening to record, I have a very idea of what I think it means, but I'm curious what your reaction is to that
Okay,
idea.
so it came from the word sonder, which is to it's like window watching and or whatever. If you see someone in the street, sonder is to realize that every stranger or every person that you see has a life as deep as or complex or as vivid as your own, and
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of where it came from. Um, Ben would be better at explaining this than me, but that is essentially where it came from. The word sonder to see a stranger or someone in the street and realize that they have a complexer life. Did I say that right? I don't know.
Yeah, like they're
Their
just an
life.
extra in your life's if your life's a movie, they're just an extra in your story, and you're just an extra in their story.
Exactly. That's something I've said to my girlfriend all the time for the last 10, 11 years we've been together, is like, everyone is the star of their own movie. When,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of one of those things that we'll say to each other if we're taking something too personally, or if we feel like someone's done something and it's a slant against us or something. It's just like, no, it's not. We're just an extra. It's nothing personal. They're the star of their own movie, and it is that's exactly what it is.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite quotes from the comic strip Calvin and Hobbes of all time that I think about is they say all the world's a stage, but obviously the play is unrehearsed and everybody is ad-libbing their lines.
Yeah, that totally.
And
That's a good one. I
I
like that.
I always come back to that.
It's a good one.
At 100%. So something else I wanted to ask you. I'm guessing this ha, have you I know you mixed the most recent record. How have you been involved in the songwriting process for Neck Deep yet, or do you think that'll come in the future when the next album is happening?
Oh yeah, I've been involved since day one.
Yeah.
I've I think I can't. I'm not nerdy enough to know exactly how many songs we've got, or petty enough to know exactly how many songs we've got and how many I've written on. But I probably have only. I don't have credits or haven't helped write on probably like 5 songs of the entire catalog.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else I've written with them. So yeah, and again, I think it's because I've got the equipment and the facilities to be able to do it. It kind of just that's kind of how it happened anyway. The band started when I was recording Wes, the guitarist's old band. He was in a hardcore band and
Uh-huh.
had a studio in my attic, and Ben was always kind of just lurking around and trying to get involved in some way or another.
Uh-huh.
So when it came time to do something, Ben had been pestering me like a little brother for about 6 months of like, please, can I do a pop punk song? Please, 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 can we do a pop punk song? I just want to do one song. I was like, all right, fine, fuck it, we'll do it. Um, yeah, so yeah, this we're always writing. I've been writing over lockdown. Sam's been writing over lockdown. Ben's been
Mm-hmm.
writing over lockdown. So yeah, it's definitely been for Ben especially. It's been harder on him to get lyrics out. He's kind of at a place where it's just not feeling super inspired or like not really sure how to like use his voice or what he wants to talk about too much.
Mm-hmm.
But he's been writing with me like instrumentals. We've been writing like music beds together and stuff.
Uh-huh.
So we have that. But I
Very
think
cool.
he's still trying to find what he wants to say
Yeah.
and how, just because it's hard to be inspired during all this. I get it, and I'm so grateful that my job allows me to continue to work on music throughout this whole thing. So I'd find it so hard to be a vocalist of a band. Obviously, like I said earlier, I'm an introvert. I wouldn't want that pressure or that attention, but
Mm-hmm.
also just the fucking pressure of like having so many people hanging on your words. You know what I mean? Having to try and have a message. It's so hard. Like in the early days of, I'm sure, a lot of musicians' careers, it's like, well, we have nothing to lose, so I'm just going to say whatever the fuck I want. I don't really care, like
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Whereas now we have a platform and a fan base. It's like, damn, we kind of, do we need to be responsible? Do we need, and even if we do want to say, oh fuck it, I don't really care what we write about or whatever, it's still it's hard to kind of break away from that when you've already got 4 records under your belt or whatever.
Yeah, you got to you kind of start thinking about, well, not only what do I want to say now, what's like genuine to me,
Mm-hmm.
but then also you maybe think a little bit more about what you're putting out in the world, like what kind of ideas are behind the things you say. That's
Totally.
yeah, that makes sense to me. Well, if I'm definitely sure there's a lot to be said whenever it's there. I'm sure that maybe there's like another character that can be. I would love to see where these two people from Sunderland end up in a few years. That could be fascinating
Okay, that's cool.
to
That's
to ex-
interesting.
to explore. But I can't wait for when you guys get to play the States again. I wanted to ask you also, as a bassist, and then this will be a good way to close out. As a bassist in this style of music, how do you approach writing bass lines? I've been trying, because the band I'm in now is the first band I've ever played bass in, so I was very much like a guitarist, like root notes all the way, and I'm trying to throw in like fifths and like use like the two skinny strings on occasion. So I'm curious what your approach to doing a bass line is when you're songwriting.
I'm similar to you, where I'm sort of a jack of all trades, master of none, and it's kind of come
Uh
through
huh.
producing, where it's like I have to be like a little bit good at everything. But the way I've been writing bass lines, which I've really liked, because I'm not super sick at bass, but the way I found that is a bit more inspiring for me to write bass is programming bass, just doing MIDI bass. And I've kind of been doing that through. So when we're doing demos and stuff, I'll just program the bass. I'll just do MIDI bass just because it's like, whatever, this bass is perfect already. Like it's tuned, it's ready to go. Like just put it in. And that's kind of been helping me, is just doing it through MIDI notes or on a keyboard or whatever. So I'll put all the root notes in, and cool, there's the bass, the most basic form of bass that we can do. But then I always try and listen to the vocals and what the bass can do to follow the vocals. And that's always like, that's kind of what I'm listening for, is like, could I harmonize the vocal here? Could I do like a counter melody on the bass here that kind of goes with the vocals? So that's how I've been approaching it recently, is just doing it through MIDI. And I know that's, some bassists would kill me, you know, for not actually picking up a bass and doing it. But man, I'm a technological boy. I do things on the computer. I'm you know, when people ask like, what instrument do you play? The computer is my best instrument. I can play the computer really well.
And that's like that's the laboratory. That's where like you put everything to all the ingredients together. So that makes total sense to me. I would maybe feel differently if you just had bass patches and were just hitting the MIDI keyboard live. But as far as like songwriting and the studio goes, I don't think the only rules should be the song should be good, and let's make it sound as good as we can.
Absolutely. That's always it. That's always, it's what serves the song best. That's the number one rule for me. And over the last 10 years of being a producer and having to work with a band of 3 to 5 to 6 people in the room, it's trying to manage those egos. And I don't mean that in a negative sense or like a derogatory term of like, oh, they've got egos, but just trying to manage 5 people and guide them all towards that goal of like, it's the song that matters. It whatever you want to do, if it makes the song better, great. If it doesn't, then I don't care. Like it's whatever serves the song. Everything else is irrelevant.
Exactly. That's something I've been trying to remember as far as like cutting down on unnecessary guitar parts or like long intros that don't need to be long. Things like that. Just like get to the good part, I guess, as quickly as possible.
Don't bore us. Get to the chorus.
Yeah, that's that is a mantra for a reason.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Seb, this has been a true delight to get to chat with you. I feel like I've learned a lot from this conversation, and so All Distortions Are Intentional by Neck Deep is out now. I'm also curious, are you guys going to be doing anything else in the future, and will you be doing Slipknot again this Halloween?
Slipknot, yes, probably. Yeah, I'll say yeah. And then in terms of doing anything in the future, fuck knows. Right now, fuck knows. But I would like to say yes, we will. I'll be a bit more positive. We will definitely. We will still be a band that comes out the other side of this. We'll be in the US. I'm dying to get over to the US. It was such a, I don't know. I was so looking forward to it this year, to getting over there and meeting people that I spoke to online for years and trying new food. So you will see us sooner rather than later, as long as people fucking wear a mask and don't storm the Capitol.
Yeah, that's my plan as well. And when you guys have New York, I've lived here for 10 years. I know all the best. I know some great spots. I'll start researching what's near Terminal 5 because I think that's where one of your shows is set for next December. So I look forward to meeting you in person in the future, Seb. So thank you very much for your time. I sincerely appreciate it, dude.
You too, man. I really appreciate it. I've had such a good time, and I will hold you to the food recommendations and taking me to the best spots.
100%. I got your back. I'm looking forward to it, man. Thank you again.
Awesome. Thank you, Will.
Thank you, Seb. that conversation to me while I was having it was very cathartic. Was a nice break from following the news, and it was just a real delight to get to chat with Seb, and I can't wait for them to be able to tour in the after times. So thank you, Seb, for your time, man. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to taking you guys around New York City when we're able to. So if you guys haven't heard Neck Deep's newest album, All Distortions Are Intentional, you should definitely get it wherever you keep your music, wherever you get your music. And thank you guys for listening. If you're a Neck Deep fan and you want to, and you're curious about other episodes of this podcast, you can go to our Twitter account at AwesomeDeepPod on Twitter. You'll find a link to some of my favorite episodes I've done. I've done almost 200 episodes of this show, and I've been able to talk to some really, really awesome people like Jarrett Reddick from Bowling for Soup, Mitch Allen from SR71, Krista Makes from Less Than Jake. I'm really proud of this podcast, and also give a shout out to my supporter on Patreon at the awesome producer level, Mary Beth Mooney. Thank you so much for your support. I sincerely appreciate it, and we'll keep it tight. We'll keep it minimal here, and if you want to check out anything else that I've got going on, there's a link in the description. And thanks, guys. I appreciate you being here, and I hope you're as well as you can be. So thank you guys for listening, and I will see you next time between awesome and disaster. Stay safe, wear a mask, and fuck fascism.